is podcast number 30.
30.
We're back in business.
Oh, wow.
And here to join me is El Capitan, Mr. Senior Executive of AM Grinding, Joe Malacarne himself.
Greetings. Shalom. Hello.
Say hello to the viewers.
Hello. 879 million viewers.
Oh, yeah. I like those numbers.
How you doing?
Salud. Thanks for coming here.
My pleasure.
So, we're restarting the podcast up here.
Very nice.
The new guest. And we're going to dive into the past.
Oh.
Into the name of the AM Grinding name. And get an explanation and a definition and for the viewers of what it is.
So the AM Grinding prior to Focused.
Prior to Focus, yes. The 120 years prior to it.
Well, AM Grinding came about. There was two third generation grinders in Toronto, myself and Richard Benelli. Both our grandparents came to Toronto in the early 1900s. My grandfather came in 1904, and I believe Richard's grandfather came shortly thereafter. So those two gentlemen were knife grinders, commercial. They went around with a horse and wagon at that time, and they had a gas-powered motor that ran the grinding wheel, which was more commercial in size. A lot of people, when they hear, when I was younger, that we were grinders or sharpeners, they immediately went to the guys that went around with a bell walking the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But those are domestic sharpeners. They wouldn't be able to do the large commercial knives or the volume. So anyway, so then my father and Richard's father took over. They worked out of trucks as opposed to horse and wagon. And then that evolved to, at that point, a person or a company, a sharpener, could only work for however many hours there were in the day. So they went to the locations, parked outside, did their work. But then as the city grew and it was hard to park and created problems, so somebody, I won't say it's my father, but somebody came up with the idea of doing a supply service similar to uniforms or mats on an exchange basis. And that's when the business went from more or less an individual person to a company, because then they could hire drivers to do the deliveries, and then the work could be done in the shop anytime.
So what year was that? Did he implement that?
That was probably done, I would think, in the 40s.
So that was pretty like a new, innovative thing.
At that time, yeah. Because most of the knife grinders that are in North America came from pretty well a valley in Italy. And there's actually a town there that has, in 2000, they erected a monument towards the tradespeople. And then from there, a lot of the knife grinders got into, because they're in the restaurants.
I have the photo of this event you're talking about in for the listeners. It's Pinzolo,
Italy.
in northern Italy. So give them like an idea where it is. It's kind of like,
it's probably 2.5 hours northwest of Venice. It's in the Trento region. So then myself, when I took over from my dad, I got into...
So here's it.
Sorry.
Here's the newspaper.
Yes.
So the statue basically is, it's here. If we go back, if you saw all the viewers, if you saw the logo in the beginning, that's the statue we're talking about. So that's like where it came from.
Yeah,
For
back
the music. So
bef-
this is the
yeah.
actual statue. This is like the whatever the festival they had or something for it.
Well, yeah, they had a big festival when they put
And
it
what
up.
year was that? Because we can't. It's hard to. It says Moletta at the top, 2000.
Yeah,
And Moletta in Italian is sharpening, right?
right, sharpener. Yeah.
So that was erected in 2000 in Pinzolo, and then so let's go back to the 40s there.
Yeah. So then most of the knife grinders came from this region. So in New York City, Chicago, Boston, Toronto, Montreal, most major cities, pretty well all the people in that business were from the same region, which is kind of interesting because let's say competition creates kind of a sandpaper issue between people. So some of the very, very successful knife grinders all came from the same region, but when they went back to their hometown to visit, they didn't associate because they were competition in North America.
So if they weren't in this same business together and they just happened to know each other in the town, they would probably be a lot more hospitable.
Yeah, they were polite and everything, but
but
that,
at the behind closed doors, it's like
yeah. So there was anyway, in any business, there's a lot of competition. When I was younger and I heard about it from my dad, I thought it was more unique to that type of business, no pun intended, being cutthroat and all that kind of stuff.
literally.
Yeah, but there's worse things that happen in other businesses.
Yeah. So how did my great grandfather and your grandfather get into this? Was he
Basically, there was no industry in the whole valley, the whole region. There was nothing for people.
so this is called it's like the Trey Valleys.
Now it's three villas.
Three villas. So it's like it's kind of like if anybody knows northern Italian geography, it's like you go up the Brenner Passage. So if you go up,
Which is probably
Verona,
it's not that far distance wise, but it takes about an hour because the roads are so curvy.
it's all windy.
It's all windy. It's very anybody that
Anyway,
knows.
so
Yeah.
do you think this area like created the right environment for this profession to arise? Because
There's
you have access to Dolomites, mountains, and fresh water, and all this stuff. And
there's a book called Italians in Toronto that was written. I'm not sure when it was written. I do have the book. In a further podcast, we'll bring it and we'll expand on that. But basically, different industries or trades came in groups from different areas. So you had bricklayers, you had lumberjacks, you had knife grinders. So for whatever reason, most of the knife grinders came from this region, hence the reason why they had a bit of an association, and they erected this monument to remember them. So getting back to when there was the grandparents and then our fathers and then my partner at the time, Richard Benelli, and I. So his company was called Acme Grinding.
Yeah.
My company was called Malacarne Grinding. When we merged together, we wanted to come with some modern, fancy, trendy name. And we really had a hard time coming up with it because they were such destination businesses.
Yeah.
We didn't want to lose the heritage and the name.
Yeah.
So we took Acme and Malacarne and made a logo out of it, AM Grinding, and we shortened it.
Yeah.
And then Alex, when he got into his profession,
music.
So he liked the heritage of, tough grind, all that kind of stuff, whatever. So he related to that. And then his initials are AM, which is Alex Malacarne. So that just seemed to be a natural for him. So that's kind of how where it came from, and then how it evolved.
Perfect for me, and it was like, we'll tie into all this. It's basically like, because you hadn't been to Italy most of your life, and then you went at what age? You were 40 again? No, 2002 was.
The year 2002 was the first time. My father was one of 6 kids.
Yeah.
My grandfather was a little different than most immigrants when they came to the country, because most immigrants came and brought their spouses and their kids.
Whole family.
My grandfather came first, and then he settled, got his landed immigrant status, and then he went back to Italy, I guess, hooked up with his bride and brought her. So the first 5 children that they had together were all born in Canada, in Toronto. Then they went back in the late 20s for a stay, which ended for a while. I'm not sure the whole reasons, but they stayed for a little while. And the last of the 6 children was born in Italy, which was my aunt.
And then the tie to that is your cousin.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So
yeah.
that's his mother, and he wanted to go back there because there was a farm and a house. And speak about the house a little bit and its importance to the town.
Yeah, so my grandfather had the house, like a lot of immigrants that came, they kept the house. But they also, on the outskirts of the town.
But tell the listeners in context to the like a visualization. These are like 900-year-old houses. These are like 1,000-year-old houses.
Yeah, they're like 3-foot thick walls. Most of them at that time, the way they were constructed, is the first level was where the cattle stayed. The second level was the living quarters. Second and third level was the living quarters, and then the top level was almost an open air area where they used to put all the hay to feed the cattle over the winter. So that was the traditional houses. Some of them went back. There's remnants of the Romans being there in the 1600s. So there's a lot of older construction and history. So my dad used to go back. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. The first of the 3 children, back in those days, illness was an issue. They didn't have the support medicines they have now. So my uncle died at 10, my aunt died at 11, and I had another uncle that died at 29. So they all died young. I never knew them or met them.
And again, how many of them had the mastoid infection? There was
2.
2. So that's what I had as a kid when I was 7. And then so another tie to it all is the song I made. It's called Challenge Accepted, and basically it's like the challenge you take in that time era of like packing up all your shit and going to another country, and that happened, and a lot of kids died of diseases and stuff like that. And then so I tied it to that challenge, and also kind of like mixing it in with the Challenger, the space shuttle, because I was in the hospital for that infection, that same infection. And basically it's like, my take on it is like, everybody who's the first at anything, something's not gonna go the best the way it is, but the intention is like for a better life for the next generations. And that was kind of the same as space travel. Space travel was kind of like the same as like going across the Atlantic. and just like a new world, and just like
Yep.
taking a chance. And it's like, yes, there's setbacks, but it's like it's a step for the next generation and the next generation. So I was like, that was the same as like the space shuttle, the Challenger that went up and blew up, but they were like, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have the space exploration we had now. You know what I mean? It's like somebody
Well,
has
sacrifices
to
have
do the sacrifice
has to be
first
made.
in order for the next generation to stand on those shoulders, right?
Yep.
So it was like every first immigrants, like that's a good thing, amazing thing about Canada. It's like and somebody can come from another country, start a whole new life, and then it's just like you've set it up for the next generation, the next generation.
Yep.
So our family's thing was the sharpening thing. And so was it something that was like prevalent in Pinzolo, and then it was like there's no work here and there's no income, or let's just take a chance and an opportunity in a new world and let's try it there, and it's just like, well, you can't think of what they were thinking at the time.
So the area there's a city called Tioni, and it's sort of central. And then when you're in Tioni, when you look to one direction, it's a valley. There's mountains on both sides. So you look in the other direction, there's mountains on both sides. So all three directions, there's mountains on both sides. So it's kind of like three valleys kind of meeting in one area.
Yeah.
And Rogli was very close to that. Pinzolo was close to that. So that whole region, Valdetta, that whole region covered a fair amount of area. And that's the whole region where most of the knife grinders came from for whatever reason. Somebody got the idea, seemed like a good idea at the time, and then they just all kind of went for it. And then some were better equipped, and some were more, I guess, talented than others, and then some had larger families, so they were able to spread the load and make connections and grow from there.
So let's talk about like the the technology basically back then. So I would think that, because we have a picture of we'll get you to explain this picture with the horse and buggy and all this stuff. We'll pull it up. But I imagine in Italy you wouldn't be able to pull this off because
back in Italy when this originated, they had carts. It's probably,
so there's the photo there.
Yeah, we can probably get a picture of a cart for a future podcast. But basically, the cart had a large wheel, and
like a grinding wheel, you mean?
no, it was a wheel for moving it around.
Okay.
And then they had handles on it.
Oh, it was like a stationary one-man thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like a dolly, but with more to it.
Yeah.
So what the grinder would do is he would go from place to place with this cart, place it wherever it was. A lot of times what they would do is get a kid to sit on it and pedal it, because it had to be pedaled. And then sometimes, depending on where they were located, they would get another kid to run to the people's houses, bring the knives or the business or whatever. And then the grinding wheels at that time, I believe, were about 12 inches in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things with grinding...
So that's like a tire.
Yeah. So one of the things with grinding, you're placing metal on a stone. So the faster you go, the more friction you get, which is more heat. So they had to run it at a fast enough to cut the metal, but slow enough so that it didn't heat up. And then they had to use water. So stories go, some places didn't have enough water, so they used some wine. Maybe they got the wine vapors, so I don't know where that went. So I'm not gonna speculate. But some of them were very happy doing their job.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the art of sharpening was a combination of learning the right speed to get the right friction without getting too hot, and that. So then from there, when those tradespeople immigrated to Canada, because it was more industrialized, it was harder to get around, things are further away. So they came up with this horse and wagon concept, and they used to have a gas powered motor that ran the grinding wheel. And now, in today's world, I mean, if you hear the bells of a dairy
There's
truck,
a guy who comes by here.
but the dairy truck where all the kids run out to get the ice cream. Well, back in those days, when they heard the motor start up for the gas-powered motor for the grinders, they would come out with their knives.
Oh, so people knew that.
So
was
they
the
knew by the
signal.
sound that
Yeah.
was, and then also then once they got a route built up, then timing. So then that was, I think the wheels then were probably a little larger, maybe 15 inches or 18 inches in diameter. When they got to putting them in the trucks, the wheels probably got a little bigger. And then when they started working out of their shops, pretty well the standard was a 32-inch grinding wheel. My dad used to take trips down to the States and visit some of the larger volume grinders, and he saw that they had large 60-inch grinding wheels. That's 5 feet in diameter.
Yeah.
So my dad figured it out, set it up, and that's what he was doing his work on. So when I was 2 foot 3 inches tall or whatever, when I was a little kid, I stood on a stool and I learned to grind on a 60-inch diameter grinding
Enough
wheel.
to reach.
Yeah. So most of the grinders stuck to the 32-inch.
Yeah.
My dad was a little progressive, so he went to the 50-inch, and that's what I started on. So that was a good thing. Just to elaborate a little bit, so when I was young and working and starting in the business, I obviously thought I knew it all and I knew better and stuff. But I remember when I was like 5 years old, I used to go in my dad's shop and watch him. And I don't know, I could have sat there all day and watched him. He was just good at what he did, and he made it look easy. And I realized at a young age, anybody that can make something look easy knows what they're doing. And if you can sort of get in the zone and whatever. So when I got talking to my dad later on, and we were talking, and he sort of said, well, if you were learning to become a grinder, it would take 6 months just to get the basics, and then it would take 2 to 5 years to become acceptable of what you're doing, and then it took another 10 years to kind of get in the zone, and you really couldn't call yourself a proper grinder or an artisan till you had 20 years under your belt.
Jeez.
So in the first 6 months, I thought didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But once I reached my 21st year, I understood.
You're like, okay, now you're in a zone where it's just like, it's like part of you, right? And you're kind of,
Yeah.
it's flawless more than anything. You're like,
Yeah, maybe we should get some props next time, but there's,
yeah, we'll take some photos of some stuff and we'll get
yeah, so, and then we can get into explaining the sharpening and the
So-
grinding.
that with the so the horse and buggy here, we got one with the you photoshopped
Yes.
the AM grinding logo over it, but there was something like that art. So Giacomo, my great grandfather, your grandfather, he had the horse and buggy, right? So did your dad inherited that technology, and then he couldn't have because
No, well,
so
what,
when did that convert into vans? Like when did
so,
that
okay,
era
so
end?
that picture was probably taken, uh, prior to 1920.
Yeah, because cars started really coming in the
Well,
twenties.
yeah, but more so because the little guy there in front, um, there's a guy at the back.
The wheel, the big wheel.
Yeah, but there's a guy at the back, which I believe is my grandfather. And then the little guy, I tell people that was my dad. So I think it's pretty. And that picture was taken on Harvard Street, 201 Harvard. It was in front of the house.
Probably still exists.
It does, and
Two
we'll
houses.
we'll get into that in another day. But that now is a venue, and it's
Oh, that's the house.
yeah.
Oh, okay. No, we have pictures too. So let's finish that and we'll get into that. So, when did your dad start using
A
trucks?
truck probably
Because
in the
so
in
it
the
went from the horse and buggy
yeah.
to just at the shop. So people would
No,
have
no,
to come to
no,
the shop and get
no,
a service.
no, they didn't have shops yet.
Oh.
So the horse and buggy, then the trucks that they used, there was no seats in the trucks.
Okay.
You used to stand up and drive.
So you did everything in the truck. The whole shop was in the truck.
Yeah,
Got you. Oh, so that's why the trucks are what they are today.
yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Live and learn. That's what I
Yes.
tell people.
I'm trying.
Some people live, and some people learn, and some do both.
So what year was that when he got trucks?
I would say in the mid-20s.
Mid-20s he got trucks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
one truck, two trucks?
just one truck.
Just one.
Is both up until then and for quite a while after, they were all one-person businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody learned the trade, they would get their own truck.
Yeah, so you're like your own business.
Yeah, so it wasn't like modern times or semi-modern times where if you had a business and you need somebody to come work for you, you couldn't go online and ask for somebody with grinding experience to come work for you.
Yeah.
Because number one, if they had the experience, they were running their own business.
Yeah. Also, so he went from the trucks, and then he went from the trucks. When did he move it into make a shop?
Probably in the 40s.
In the 40s.
And that's when he, as well as others, came across the idea of having a double set of knives and an exchange service.
So let's talk about that. So you said there's that photo that we just looked at. There's the house, right?
Yes.
So now we're gonna pull up the deed to it, which is basically like the sale receipt, right?
Yes.
Let me see. Hold on 1 second.
So I'm not sure exactly when he bought the house.
So there, yeah, it has the breakdown of like the sale of it, and it said so. The letter says 1912.
Yeah, so that would be my grandfather because my dad wasn't born until
So
1914.
was that? Oh, so the official. Sorry, I'm trying. The official beginning of AM Grinding or the company was 1904 when he started.
That's correct.
Gotcha. So now this 1912, he has a building to work in.
Yes.
So
Or a stable to keep his horse and
stable.
wagon.
So
And a house to live in.
okay, so that was just kind of like there was no operation within there.
No, not at
But it was
that
just-
time.
Okay, so that's the deed, and now we're gonna switch over to let's see, a picture of the house.
So
The shop,
if
right?
I may,
Yeah. Tell us.
so the white building part is actually the stable. So to the right of that, there's a little space, and then you see a window. That was actually part of 201. That was the rear of 201 Harvard Street, and that was actually the bathroom window. So to get into to the shop, the stable, what I remember, there was a door, I guess, around the corner from the white side. So there was a door, a walk-in door there. Also, the two big windows on the white side. If you look to the left of that, there's actually a door frame. So actually, originally, that was the way to get in. And on the right side of the white, that actually was a garage door that used to open and close.
Oh, okay.
And that's where they used to bring the truck inside.
Gotcha. But first, initially it was made for horses.
It was a stable, and if you look closely on the top of the white, you'll see a metal bar that runs across, and that's where the door used to hang from the metal, and so it would slide out of the way so they could get in and out, and then when they finished, they could close it off. So little tidbits of information for people that I don't know if it's so much for kids that are on videos and people want to get them outside and play and all this stuff. So the way I heard it, my grandfather really came with nothing, and for quite a while he used to sleep with the horse.
Wow.
Mostly in the winter because it was warmer.
Yeah. Well, the methane probably created
whatever
warmth.
So when my dad used to get me up to go to work, I was told I was lucky that I didn't have to sleep in the barn with the horse.
Horses.
But anyway.
And then later we had a place where there was a barn.
That's right.
So for the viewers, this area is 201 Harvard Street, which is the corner of Harvard and Bathurst.
Well, there's Bathurst and Lippincott, which is the first street west of Bathurst. It's on the south side. It's in the middle of the block.
So now which is really interesting, is a music venue, and it's called Bampot, and it's like a very instrumental type of place. So it's like a tea place with a music venue. So it's kind of interesting how house you grew up in, the name I took, Aim Grinding, that's where it started, and now it's a music venue, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so that's the exterior, and I do have good memories of that wall specifically. Oh, we got a call. And I do remember that white wall. I remember that door, and I remember that alleyway.
Where's the picture of you and your mother when you were a little puppy on the counter? Did you scan that one?
I didn't scan that one because half of it was.
Okay, we'll save that. We have lots for you if you're interested.
We have two more.
Okay.
So we have an interior picture, which will give you an idea of what type of inventory we had back in the day. And this is a typical wall in the AM Grinding shop. And just give us a little rundown what we're looking at here.
Well, actually, if the truth be known, there was the shop, and then my first dabbling in retail merchandising is I put a piece of plywood up on the wall and put a bunch of nails on it, and I hung a bunch of commercial knives on it. We had a machine, a buffing wheel that used to vibrate. So when it got turned on, all the knives fell off the wall. So I wasn't a big hit with the old generation.
No.
So what I did is I put elastic bands over the nails to hold the knives up.
Oh, like a shock absorption.
Yeah,
Type of,
yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, so that was fine, but I knew uh, the the visual of retail and impulse buying and all that kind of stuff. But because we were in a stable in the laneway off the street, that just wasn't happening. So the only people we were getting in there were people that knew the business and came in to do business. So I went to the very first food and wine show back in the early 80s. And when I came back on the Monday morning at 7 o'clock, there was a guy standing outside waiting, like he was so excited to find the place. So anyway, so what I did, it was a little store 2 doors down the way. It was empty. So we opened the store, and that's where this picture's from. And we had all the walls, everything, showcases, everything was full of knives.
Nice.
High quality toenail clippers, anything to do with.
So he was like a local beat paper or like the scene paper, like he was
Which
this guy who came in.
It was just a customer. He saw us at the trade show.
Oh, so
he saw us at the trade show. No, he saw us at the trade show,
Yeah.
but he came there,
Gotcha.
and then from there I decided to open the store, which was a few doors from the shop, and it was right on Harvard Street, so you could look in the windows. You could look in the windows from Harvard Street and see all this from outside.
Oh, so this is like a perspective of looking through the front window.
Yeah, well, it's actually I think right from the inside.
Okay.
Because there was 3 walls, because the one wall was all windows.
Yeah.
So all the 3 walls we just maximized on the display space.
Nice. So this location was there, and then you took over the business. And I can't remember what year was it again when you moved from there to Eglinton.
1987.
87. So then you took it from basic like knife grinding business and all sharpening to another business. Like
Yeah. So at the time, there was individual businesses. There was probably back in the day with the horse and wagon, there was probably a dozen people. When it evolved later to when I got involved, there was probably 4 or 5. So, and nobody in this industry that I know of in any city, nobody merged or became partners. That was something that
it's like like you said earlier, all
was
the guys from the same
yeah,
town, you know.
whatever this, yeah. So anyway, so there was another knife grinder, Richard Benelli, which was Acme Grinding, and him and my dad were competitors, but they were friendly competitors, and even the grandfathers were basically friendly competitors. So they respected each other's customers, whatever, blah blah blah. So him and I got talking, and we ended up merging our companies together. And then his shop and my shop were too small, so then we moved to actually a fairly large building. I think it was 10,000 square feet. We moved into there in the 87, 88, and we had a big showroom, and we grew, and we had 5 drivers, and we had about 12,000 customers that we used to change their knives almost on a weekly basis.
So you took that service your dad had and just blew it up.
Blew it up. And then we added the repairs. And then because we realized we're in the kitchen with the chefs, our delivery people, you see them every week. So they're no longer business people, they're friends, extension of your family, whatever. So based on that relationship, we were already there. So if we could provide the product with no delivery charge and minimum quantities, so we did that, and we did very well.
And when did you really get into the like equipment part? Like, cause then it was a whole
probably in the 90s,
Yeah.
mid 90s. And then we got to the point where we were exhibiting in the big restaurant shows. And I believe at our peak we had 16 people. And then it was then that I realized any company that has staff, I mean, some companies are better organized and well run than others, but it was kind of like running a nursery. But I digress. I apologize.
No, that's any category or any line of work. But I remember those. I was very have fond memories of the trade shows because there was the sporting shows at the X, and this is when they had everything all in one, right? It was like sportsman show with the boating and the fishing and all that stuff.
Well, they had a boating show, they had a sporting show, they had the home show, and these shows back then were 10 days long.
Yeah. Now they're like a weekend.
You're lucky.
They jam it in.
Well, for several reasons. One, the cost of the venues had gone up a lot.
Yeah.
And then the cost of everything's gone up a lot. So, and people back then, when we started, there wasn't a lot of exposure for our products. Nobody had credit cards. They didn't exist then.
You had the slot like.
So people had cash, and people had disposable cash. So what would happen is if they saw something they liked, and it was at a price that they thought was a good deal, they had no trouble. Purchasing. So there were selling shows. Now most of the shows are what I call flag waving shows. If you're in the business, you have to be in front of the public. You have to be in front.
Like the boat show.
Yeah, and you got to be available and wave your flag and get your business that way.
Before, like when you were doing it, it was more like nobody's watching, and like
no, it was
your own rules and like.
Well, not so much that. It was just like I remember.
So one thing, sorry, the reason why I say that is because are there certain things that were like now you couldn't sell, like that you could sell in the 80s, like a butterfly knife or a, like a.
Yes.
Like you told me a story about somebody coming in specifically looking for something type of knives that were you could.
Well, they had the throwing stars from the kung fu stuff, and then they had the
So was that
the
like
butterfly.
pop culture driven?
No, this was like serious stuff.
Yeah.
We used to carry a lot of.
Didn't you have Mr. Teeth? What was that? Somebody came to the shop.
Well, I had Bert Cummings come get a knife. I had different people. Actually, there was a. I don't know if you remember.
You told me this story that somebody came in, you just served him like a regular customer.
Oh, it was Bruce Coburn.
Yeah, and he left, and you're like,
He came in, and he, I don't know, he had a machete or something that he had got somewhere on his travels, and because he lived around the corner, I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
So he came in.
On Harper.
Yeah, on Harper. He lived on Borden Street, I think, at that time.
Okay.
Anyway, came in. He wanted to get the sharpened, so we had these repair tags. So I would say, "What's your name?" I wrote the name and phone number, whatever. And I said, "Be ready next Thursday or something." So he left, and my sister was like so googly-eyed. She was just beside herself, and she said, "Do you know who that was?" And I said, "Of course I know who it was." And I looked at the repair tag, and I read his name. It's Bruce Coburn. Anyway, he became a regular customer, and
wow.
So we had some interesting. I guess we were like an interesting knife shop, and because I brought in stuff, I brought in handmade stuff, I brought in different things, so we had a bit of a crowd. And I remember, I got a small case of Sometimers right now, but I remember, we even had guys from the Toronto SWAT teams.
Yes.
Coming in and picking up some blades because they weren't readily available. Anyway, so when things got a little bit more regulated, I guess.
Yeah.
Then
Watched.
I got away from that. But it was interesting. I remember I went to I used to go to Daytona Beach for the bike races, motorcycle races, for the whatever. And I was coming back one time. We stopped at a truck stop, and this truck stop, they had like showcases and showcases full of knives, like just stuff that it's like anything. The Americans, there's a lot of more volume, more selection.
With everything.
So I had the kid that was there. I got him to call the owner at home, and I bought half his store, and we threw it in the car, and then the truck, and then we didn't declare it. But anyway, that's another story.
That's a different time.
Yes.
Different time, different. So yeah, let's wrap this up. I think we got the history, we got the
Okay.
origins. So, like you were saying at the beginning, you started going to Italy. And
Oh
then-
yeah.
So when you finally got there and saw it and met people, did you really? Is that like a time when you really okay? This is what it's all about. Like you really understand.
Well, I
had
heard
a lot more understanding.
I had a
but-
lot of I've
But
heard a
you
lot.
got it firsthand.
Yeah,
right?
but I heard stories how beautiful it was, how
Yeah.
nice it was, how nice the
No,
people
but the
were.
whole
Yeah, I know.
tied
So
into the business, right?
so when I went the first time, it was so embracing. But to be able to sit in the house that my grandfather, I guess, had, and at that time it wasn't like updated or anything.
Yeah.
So we actually went in the basement. We saw remnants of the cows, like bells and stuff like that. And when I saw the whole history and the whole thing, I said then, and I still say now, if I only have a few days left, that's where I'm going.
Well, we're gonna have a one-way ticket there.
It was a nice connection. Yeah, it was really.
So for me, it was like, cause I had just started, like doing the solo music thing myself, and it was probably the third or second day I was there, and Bruna woke me up. We went to saw the statue.
We have to do a podcast on Bruna.
We'll have to do that. That'll take a long.
A couple.
We'll have to dig up some photos, and we'll have to. So Bruna is our family connection to Italy, and without Bruna, I don't think we would ever go there or like really expand on our history. And she knew like what I was looking for. She knew what I was. I think she had a sense of what I was searching for, and then she's like, "I'll just show it to him." And then so she woke me up, and when we went to Pinzola, we saw the statue, and I saw it, and I was like, "There it is, right there." So that's the essence, and it's like you said, that it just fell into place because it's like AM grinding. We're up at 7 a.m. It just makes sense. And then I took a photo of it, and I was like, "Okay, this is it. This is the. Everybody says you have to have like what is it called nowadays? It's like identity, whatever you want to call it, or something like a theme or something." So I was like, "That's it. The grinder, like the blue collar worker, and they really put a lot of pride into the blue collar worker in these towns." And I took the photo, and I knew it right away then and there. And then so I sent it to my artist buddy, and he fixed it up, made a version of it. And your cousin Rick, his son, he's the one who fixed up the logo and made it what it is. So it's like the whole AM grinding thing is all a family thing, and it's thank you for doing your thing and what you do, and inspiring to grind it for 120. What are we at now? 100. We're at
120 years if we
120 years.
if we stuck at it.
And but the name's alive. The intention's
So
still there.
you could have been fourth generation, but actually you worked in it for a while. So yeah, you were. And I
Learned to grind. Well, I don't have the 20 year.
I will say this about that. So every generation, obviously, they want it better for the next generation. whatever and whatever. No pun intended, and I don't mean this to be silly or anything, but it was a tough grind. And
Literally.
I truly wouldn't wish it on anybody, let alone my son. So I'm glad that he has found his way. I support him then, I support him now, and it's just a pleasure to be in his company.
So,
So,
on that note,
so what I want to know,
yes.
I used to have a big badge on my, which we're going to show, that my name,
Him grinding.
no, just Joe,
Yeah.
and I had the sharpest guy in town.
Yeah.
So,
We're going to use that.
so are you now the next
Yeah.
sharpest guy in town?
Sharpest
Sharpest. Okay. Sharpest est.
Sharpest ass. Sharpest. Oh. Sharp A. Look
Here,
at that.
sponsorship now.
Oh, the Sharp A. We are the sharpest in town.
Anyway, thank you very much
Oh,
for
thank you.
inviting me.
Thanks for
And-
being on. Episode 30. We did it, and you resurrected the show from the ground, from the grinds of the wheel back into the ether. And yeah, any last words for the folks?
Funny story.
Yeah, we got lots of funny stories.
So my dad was he was solid. Anyway, he was coming out of the truck one day and he slipped. And there was some knives on the counter and there was a long knife, very thin, and he slipped and it went through his forearm. So in his infamous style, he kind of bit his lip, had a bit of a smile, and he pulled it out.
Oy.
Then he took the grindings from the stone and whatever, rubbed it on one side and rubbed it on the other, and then he went and finished his day.
Literally in his blood.
Yeah, that actually the segue. He used to tell me that your blood's in the business, and then it wasn't until I donated a few pints that I understood what he meant. But
I cut my hand a lot.
yes, you did.
Teenage years there.
Yeah.
That's another episode. Anyways, we're gonna wrap this up. Thanks. Appreciate it. And all the love, and see you later, everybody. Have a great night. This is the Focus Podcast number 30, and
Quite edgy.